Hi guys, it's Alex Base here. Today I've got the Galaxy S24 FE, the so-called Fan Edition. Thank you very much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel and for watching. Greatly appreciated. And this one here, of course, there's no charger in the box as you can see. And this is the 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. You can also get it in 128 and 512 GB of storage, or 8 GB of RAM. Let's open this one, and as you know, I'm great with unboxing and see what it is all about inside of it. Probably not so good. This one is the blue color. You can also get it in graphite gray and also yellow and mint green color. And what else is inside of the box? And nothing so exciting after all. Just expect a charging USB cable. Yeah, USB-C to USB-C charging cable, the booklets and the warranty, and the SIM ejection tool as well. Very, very thrifty, but then again, it was expected. Oh well, let's put this one aside. And this is the phone in all of its glory. Let me just wipe it a little bit. There we go. This is the blue color, as I said. And I can take the thingy off, actually, the sticker on the back. There we go. Much better. And this is a 6.7-inch screen, and on the back is Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, and on the front is also covered by Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. On the side, the frame is aluminium. It's a little bit heavy though. Let's see the screen itself actually. It's a 6.7-inch and Full HD AMOLED screen, 120 Hz, not LTPO1, but still should be good overall. 385 pixels per inch density, and it promises to be bright enough. We'll see about that. On the back is a glossy cover, and on this frame you can see double microphone and dual SIM with eSIM support. On the side you've got the power button and the volume rockers up and down. On the bottom is the charging port, USB-C, and stereo speakers as well. On the back we've got the cameras, which is a triple camera setup. Main snapper 50 megapixel with OIS, and telephoto camera with OIS, and also an ultra wide snapper. The phone is running on Android 14, Samsung UI 6.1, and Samsung promises 7 years of software and security support. Also, it's got a 4700 milliamp hour battery with 25 watt charging, and it's a little bit heavy, as I said earlier on. Let's measure it up and see how much it actually weighs. 210 grams. Let's just double check it. Yeah, 210 grams. It is a little bit hefty. The Vivo V40 Pro actually weighed 197 grams with a 5,500 milliamp hour battery. But anywho, on a more positive note, it's actually quite sturdy, and it's got IP68 for full water and dust resistance, and it can be submerged up to 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes, which is excellent. The chipset is Exynos 2400E, which is the light version of Samsung's flagship Exynos 2400 chipset. Right, let's turn it on, and I'm going to put it through its paces. Everyday use of the phone is overall smooth. It's a nice 120 Hz screen, and it is Super AMOLED, so you got deep blacks, and it's pretty cool. And it's got some bloatware on it like every other phone, but it's not anything major to speak of. The fingerprint scanner is actually quite snappy, and like on the flagship S series, unlike on the Samsung A series where it's terrible, here is actually quite fast. You also get some artificial intelligence shenanigans. I'm not into that thing, so I'm just going to skip it. It's a stereo speaker setup with Dolby Atmos support. Let's hear it out. The screen definitely gets bright enough, and it's usable outdoors even in a sunny day. Again, we don't have that many here in England, but definitely from the very scarce sunshine that we got on from the test I did, it will be sufficiently legible, no matter what purpose you use the display for. The phone supports only two refresh rates, adaptive 120 Hz and standard 60 Hz. When you put it into a 120 Hz adaptive rate, it keeps that one in the interface. And when you're web browsing and when you are not interacting with the screen, it goes down to 60 Hz. It also keeps the 120 Hz rate in the photos gallery, but in Google Maps, it goes down to 60 Hz. And in YouTube, it starts at 120 Hz and then goes down to 60 Hz as well. When you set it to the standard 60 Hz, it just locks it to that refresh rate no matter what you're doing with the phone. It's just going to keep it 60 Hz at pretty much everything. The S24 FE has a 47 milliamp hour battery and 25 watt wire charging, as well as 15 watt wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. But when you do it with the cable from 0 to 100%, I clocked 25% in 15 minutes, 52% charge in 30 minutes, 47 minutes took for an 80% to fill up the battery, and a full charge took 1 hour and 19 minutes. And a quick reminder here that fast charging does not damage your battery's lifespan. Now, let's talk about the battery life of the phone. 1 hour of phone calls took the battery down by 2%, which is excellent. 1 hour of web browsing took it down by 9%, which is average. 1 hour of videos was 7% down, which is above average for sure. And 1 hour of gaming was 12%, which is pretty much standard. The phone supports wireless charging at 15 watts and also has reverse wireless charging, but which can also charge other devices. However, you need to turn it on into the battery settings. Samsung does not specify how fast that reverse wireless charging is, but again, it's good to have it nonetheless. Now let's move on to the performance, and I managed to get 120 Hz out of PUBG. However, after 15 minutes of playing it, it became a little bit warm and it dropped down to 60 Hz, 60 frames per second, which was not great. And then I could not get 120 Hz out of Call of Duty, which was stuck at 60 Hz, and Asphalt Legends was 120 frames per second, which is great. So high frame rate gaming is possible on the Samsung S24 FE. In terms of benchmarks, it scored pretty well in Geekbench. Bear in mind this is a upper mid-range, it's not a flagship phone. And in terms of the stability of it, it's a lot to be desired of it. It was pretty average in the ballpark of 51% stability, both CPU and GPU wise, not great really. And it did get quite warm after 1 hour of gaming. So stability wise, the performance of the chipset is not great at all. CPU wise also got a little bit hot, but not a little bit warm actually, not hot, but still nothing too major. But as I said, that chipset, while powerful, it's just not to be put under stress, that's for sure. But then again, for the average user for multi-day tasking, it should be absolutely fine. Now let's take a look at those cameras. We've got a 50 megapixel main snapper. It's a Samsung ISOCELL GN3 sensor with optical image stabilization. An ultra-wide 13 megapixel Samsung S5 K3L6 sensor. And a telephoto 8 megapixels OmniVision OV08A10 sensor. And a front camera with a 10 megapixel Samsung S5K3J1 sensor. And when you go through the app, you actually find out you can shoot 8K at 30 frames per second from the main camera only. Then when you go to 4K, you can do 60 frames per second, but only from the main camera again. If you go to 4K 30 frames per second, it's a ultra wide here, main one, and 3 times optical zoom. And if you go to full HD 1080p at 60 frames per second, it's only the main one and the that's it actually. And then we go to the full HD 30 frames per second, and you've got the 3 again, which is very, very peculiar indeed. Let's start off with the selfies. They're actually not bad at all, actually. I like them a lot. There's a detail in the subject and also very good separation with the background. And the details are good. The contrast is good. High dynamic range is nothing really to complain about. So, in other words, these are one of the better selfies you can get from a smartphone, especially in this upper mid-range market. Colors are natural, and also the portrait shots, as you can see them in a second, are also good. So let me know what you think in the comment section. I did the customary indoor shots. They're not really great, but then again, this is an upper mid-ranger, not a flagship phone, so I cannot really fault them that much. They are decent enough, to put it that way. The main camera performs well. There's a lot of detail in the shot, and the colors are juicy. They're vivid. I do like them, and they are not over the top. The high dynamic range could be better. The shadows are a little bit underdeveloped, but again, not being a flagship, I'm not going to hold it to too much scrutiny. I believe the shots from the main camera are fine. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Moving on to the zooming and the ultra wide. The ultra wide shots are a little bit soft and not that much detail in them, and when you zoom in they start to fall apart, but not as badly as on the Vivo V40 Pro. And the zooming ones are good. You can do 3 times optical zoom, and you can also do 10 times, 20 times, and 30 times digital zoom. The 3 times optical zoom and the 10 times digital zoom, I think they're usable. They're very good overall. However, at 20 and 30 times, they're very, very blurry, and the detail is gone. But then again, it's good to have options even if you don't need them, right? Also, would suggest when you do the night shots, do not go over 3 time zoom. It just, the shots are unusable. Have a look at those samples I took and see for yourselves if they are any good for you. The selfies at night are overall decent, and the detail is more than decent, really, and the exposure is nice, the contrast is good, and even though this is not a flagship phone, I still think these selfies are pretty usable. Shots from the main cam are alright without being exceptional or anything. Again, the high dynamic range could be much better, and the detail could be a little bit better, and there is a fair bit amount of noise in them. On the other hand, the colors are good, and even though detail could be better, I think it's still overall okay and pretty usable, at least from the main cam. Ultra wide shots at night are decent, but really far from being spectacular. There is detail, the dynamic range is okay, and the shadows and highlights are okay without being exceptional or anything. However, the noise is plenty of. The 3 times optical zoom on the telephoto lens, it's pretty much in the same vein as the other cameras, really. And there is some noise, there is detail, and also the high dynamic range. The HDR could be better, but then again, given the price of the phone at £600, I cannot be too critical of it. This is not a £1,200 or £1,300 phone after all. Here are some more photos for you to check out and decide for yourselves, and then we're going to move on to the video. Let's start with the selfie videos. This is 4K 30 frames per second. This is 4K 60 frames per second. Daytime video is quite good on the S24 FE, especially from the main camera, and there is not a lot of noise to speak of in the footage, as well as the colors are juicy, and also the HDR is quite good. And from the samples I did, I am impressed with the quality of those videos. Selfie cameras, you can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second, and on the main camera you can do also 8K 30 frames per second. Check out the videos I took and let me know what you think. .4K 30 frames per second ultra wide. I'm interested to see. .4K 30 frames per second main camera. .4K 30 frames per second, 3 times optical zoom. .4K 60 frames per second main camera. .8K 30 frames per second main camera only again. 1080p Full HD, 60 frames per second main camera. (1080p Full HD ultra wide at 30 frames per second. For some reason the ultra wide is only available on the 1080p 30 frames per second and 4K 30 frames per second. It's an interesting limitation. 1080p 30 frames per second from the main camera. (1080p 30 frames per second, 3 times optical zoom). And now let's finish it off with the night video. Oh, final thoughts on the S24 FE. Well, solid build, a little bit heavy, but it is what it is after all. It's a little bit slippery as well. And it's got IP68 rating, so durability is fine. And long-term support of 7 years, which is great. The screen is decent, got good stereo speakers and a decent camera setup. Does pretty good selfies too. And the battery life, web browsing was average, but the other scores were good overall. And slow charge, of course, but we're getting accustomed to it after all. And no charger in the box. We've got accustomed to that one a long time ago. And for starting price at the minute, I think it's £539 in Britain. In the US, starts at $545 or something. And in Europe is about 620 euros. Well, is it good enough? Well, at the end of the day, you decide. Thanks very much for watching and see you next time. Ciao.